collaboration with Finland on sustainable energy.
Finland's expertise in technology and innovation aligns well with Nigeria's ambition to develop a thriving tech industry.
Nigerian Customs Service intercept expired foreign milk and cartons of drugs.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine state police imperatives for national security.
The International Center for Investigative Reporting records that data collected between January and October 2023 indicates that more than 7,000 people were killed in violent attacks across the country.
Very sad. Although the figures might be in contention, but more than ever before, the harsh reality of our situation largely underscores the issues of insecurity in Nigeria, which has become endemic, ranging from banditry, insurgency, communal clashes, and others.
Now, with a diverse terrain of 36 states, 774 local government areas, and latest estimate of population put at more than 223 million, people may argue that a single police force to secure a country like Nigeria is impracticable.
You can say that again, Jimmy. According to security experts, less than 400,000 police personnel across the country is unarguably usually overwhelmed with little or no police presence at critical points of concern. Now, based on the United Nations standard, the number of policemen and women available in Nigeria is grossly inadequate to meet the 400-to-1 ratio requirement.
Inadequate, much more inadequate, and invariably this throws up issues of vulnerability and undue exposure to bandits in some hinterlands, and added to the inadequacy are concerns of over-centralized, under-resourced Nigerian police force and also political interference to contend with. Hence the growing consensus of the desirability of state police to tackle the challenge of insecurity in the country.
Absolutely, Jumei. Now, the establishment of state police has been a controversial topic of debate for several years. Recalling 2006, 2008 and 2012, the federal government police reform committee set up under the Obasanjo, Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan administrations featured state police prominently at a civil society panel on police reform.
Indeed, and just last Thursday, President Bola Tinubu agreed on the need to establish state police as recommended by state governors. However, some have expressed fear that the establishment of state police in Nigeria could further politicize and possibly lead to abuse of power, as some state governments might misuse the architecture for their selfish interests.
And now, to give a typical example, is what some states are already doing with their state-established and controlled security outfits. But the feasibility of establishing state police, many analysts believe, will depend on the capacity of the state governments to sufficiently fund and regulate such agencies while ensuring accountability. Now, so today's conversation is on state police and its imperatives for national security. I'm Henry John, glad to have you join us for the very first episode of the program this week.
Indeed, and we're on a high, and aside from the well-accepted philosophy that policing is essentially a local matter, every crime is local in nature. So experts say it is only rational to localize the police force, no matter its form. Crime detection needs a local knowledge that the state can better provide. On that note, I am Juma Yusuf, joining my colleague Kinyari to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. We're reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. Because of the program, business news, foreign and sports, newspaper review will also be on the lineup. Now let's take this morning highlights of the news with Mina Daniels. Hello Mina, good morning.
Hello Juma, good morning to you and Henry. Good morning Nigeria. Here is the news. President Bola Tinubu and President Luis da Silva of Brazil have met in Addis Ababa with discussions on comprehensive strengthening of bilateral ties in all fields. At the meeting, President Tinubu emphasized the strength of Nigeria's economic potential and influence, saying the country is witnessing a leap forward despite short-term reform pains as his administration is removing all encumbrances to business. The president further explained that his administration is investing in critical sectors of the economy like healthcare, education and agriculture to ensure the welfare of all Nigerian citizens and to create sustainable economic prosperity for future generations. He pointed out that Nigeria has a vibrant population of young Nigerians who are trainable, dependable and should be empowered. President Tinubu also revealed his administration's readiness to fight corruption and ready to invest in critical sectors like healthcare, agriculture, education, infrastructure, and others. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has joined the other African First Ladies to affirm that closing the gender gap is not an act of charity, but that of justice. This position was contained in her maiden address delivered at the 28th General Assembly of the Organization of African First Ladies for Development of LAD, while noting that the theme Educate Her and Transform Africa, enhancing access to health and education for the 21st century African women and girls is apt and addresses the very essence of the organization's joint mission for a thriving and progressive continent. The First Lady says without education, girls lack skills to support themselves and access information to make informed choices about their health and future. She highlighted embedded social norms such as early marriage and childbearing that restrict girls' life choices, but informed the gathering that the federal government through the Ministry of Education was set to establish nationwide the alternative high school for girls, an initiative she envisioned while she was the First Lady of Lagos State. Nigeria, with its abundant solar and wind resources, could leverage the existing relationship with Finland to tap from its expertise in sustainable energy solutions and green technology. Chairman Senate Committee on Navy, Senator Benga Daniel, said this at an event to celebrate decades of friendship between the two countries.
Finland's expertise in technology and innovation aligns well with Nigeria's ambition to develop a thriving tech industry. By fostering collaboration in fields of information technology, digital innovation, and entrepreneurship, we can promote the exchange of knowledge and skills, ultimately driving economic growth and creating opportunities for our citizens.
We work very well closely with the Federal Ministry of Education and even closer, I would say, with many of your state governments, the ministries of education in various states.
The Nigerian Customs Service Federal Operations Unit, Zone B Command, Kaduna, has intercepted a variety of items harmful to the well-being of Nigerians and domestic production. The controller, Dao Hawada Chedi, displayed the seized items at the command's office along Kaduna Zari Road, including expired foreign milk and cartons of drugs.
Examination revealed that the truck was conveying 75 cartons of expired foreign Jolly juice powder and 8 sacks of foreign expired milk powder that were found to have expired since 2019. The operators of the unit will not relent until smugglers are out of business.
And that's the morning news. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Jummai and Iri after this break.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, stakeholders advocate synergy with the private sector and food security as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission intensifies efforts towards tackling illegal forex trading and naira abuse in the country. Dope Alabi has these and more on Business News.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, is combating illegal forex trading against the backdrop of the continued depreciation of the naira against the US dollar. According to data from the Financial Market Infrastructure Group Warehousing, the naira depreciated to 1,537.96 naira per US dollar on Friday from 1,498.25 naira on Thursday. EFCC had arrested several suspects in connection with illegal forex trading and abuse of the naira notes in public functions.
You have an exchange rate that is at a certain level, you are happy, you go away. But if other issues don't come in with respect to productive capacity, then we're just kicking the can further down the line.
We will also have to export. Exporting means generating foreign currency. And what does that mean? It's going to improve our reserves. And that means that, we're strengthening our currency.
To strengthen the crusade, stakeholders want private sector partnerships on food security. Experts say tackling food insecurity and malnutrition must be intentional, deliberate and in consonance with the realities of the lower class of society.
Why is it that even with my money on my hand, I cannot get 10 trailers of corn to buy in 3 states put together that are states that are producing corn? Why is it that today 1 kg of corn, maize, is 800 naira, meaning that 1 metric ton of maize is 800,000 naira?
Scaling up of the nutrition network, they believe, will help to solve the cost of living crisis by producing nutritious food at affordable prices by using things like smaller packet sizes and shorter value chains to reduce the costs. Recent data from the National Bureau of Statistics paints a sobering picture of the nutritional landscape in Nigeria, with 133 million people classified as multidimensionally poor and over 100 million children lacking adequate intellectual stimulation. Nutrition remains a fundamental driver of poverty across all regions. Despite investments and interventions, malnutrition indicators have unfortunately worsened over the past decade. This underscores the urgent need for collective action with the private sector, including the 39 million SMEs in Nigeria, playing a crucial role. With Business News, Tokbe Alabi.
All right, with the business package done, it's time to take a look at the papers.
Our newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okolu Abuja is here this morning. Chukwudi, it's good to see you. Good morning.
I am here.
Hope you had quite a restful weekend.
Yes, I did, my dear. And yours? Was it a livable period?
Well,
I said livable because you know what's happening in the country.
I came down with a cold over the weekend.
Are you feeling it too, Chukwudi?
Cold? No, the heat.
What's happening in the country?
Oh, because I said I
You're looking so smart this morning.
I still have some yams. I didn't farm large scale.
You don't look like you're feeling it.
No, Chooks the boy tells you there's never a hot day in the world.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a make-believe thing. And it works.
Yeah, it does.
Life is what you call it.
It's in the head. It's a mind thing.
The way you think.
Yes.
My dad gave me that.
I remember something entered my eye and I was telling Mr. Sirius Toba that this thing is still inside. He said, no, it's in your mind. Right. And the moment he said that, some minutes later, I didn't feel it again.
That's
so
it.
It's in your mind.
It happened to me when a fish bone got in there.
Yeah.
And after about 7 days, I told the doctor it's still there. They said no.
It's a state of mind.
It gouged your throat as it was there. It's the sore you still feel.
That's what Cyril told me. And
so it means when you go to the market and they tell you a price, the price
Ladies, thank you so much.
On that note, let's quickly go to the papers. Let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. And just below the masthead, we have rising cooking gas price. Nigerians resort to charcoal, firewood. With riders, 12.5 kg nears 18,000 naira. 12.5 kg nears 18,000 naira. Environmental hazard looms coming from experts. FG, mom of failed promise to crash price. And a side piece of the picture story, you see there, hardship, Atiku, Catholic bishops flay Tinubu's policies. You find the details on page 8. Forex scarcity shrinks domestic airlines fleet by over 50%. Details on page 23. FG not sure of crime to charge Emefiele with. That's coming from the Senate President Akpabio. At the bottom plate of the Daily Trust newspaper, bandits kill 21 in Kaduna, Katsina. recruit minors in Sokoto. And the picture story you see there is the Grand Daba at the Ramat Square, Maiduguri on Sunday as part of the activities marking the 2024 Kanem Borno Cultural Summit, which was attended by dignitaries from all over Nigeria and neighboring Chad, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Ghana, and Gabon. Yeah, right.
All right, let's begin with this Nigeria. I like the caption of the lead story. Very interesting. Give us this day our daily bread. Beautiful. I'm sure this would interest Chukudi. The riders, bakers, consumers lament high costs. Should I say this is in their minds too? Or in the head?
It's a state of mind. Just decide you're not eating bread anymore.
All right, price of average loaf hit 1,200 naira. Will shut down production soon due to rising rate of bakery inputs, and that's coming from Bakers Union. Away from that, we have this one, also a very sad development. Real estate developers seek federal government's intervention as cement price surges to 15,000 naira per 50 kilogram. Details on page 7. And above that, some cherry news. Tinubu needs time to fix economy. And that's according to Akpabio and Wiki. All right, I like these headlines, honestly, and that's why I took them, in the order I did. Away from that, we have crisis in Edo APC as Idahosa Pueblo emerge Guba candidates. Details on page 18. Below that, we have withheld 4-month salary. NAT condemns federal government selective payment. And finally, this morning, from this Nigeria, Port Police parade 5 suspects for diverting 1,238 bags of wheat belonging to a UN agency. Details on page 23. Away from this Nigeria, let's look at The Guardian. The Guardian, of course, also has the issue on inflation and the rising prices. But let's look away from that story. Now, below the picture story, we have Naira crisis to double prices of meter as manufacturers seek liberalization. Details on page 3 of The Guardian. Below that, security agents intercept trucks of smuggled diverted food items at borders. Page 6 has all that you need to know. Catholic bishops fault Tinubu's reforms as CBN preaches help. Wow. So you begin to ask, what's the duty of the CBN? To preach?
Hope.
Okay. Away from that, before Chikudu response. Edo APC primary stakeholders fought Uzodima on declaration of Idahosa as winner. Page 29 has that, and then we have certificate racketeering as an albatross of education sector. That's news analysis, page 4 of The Guardian. Finally, this morning, expedite action against insecurity, inflation. Reps tell Tinubu. Chukudi.
Yeah, the action could be expedited. We agree, but what's happening now seems to be a systemic thing, because all sectors of the economy seem to have taken a bash from circumstances you can't understand, forces that are almost untamable. But then the government has a job to give the people the most orderly setting for human development. It is a job they cannot shirk. I'm happy that these reforms are happening. But as I said the other time, could it be that maybe fuel subsidy should have gone first? Then after about 6 months, you come in with what's the other one? The single window forex regime, policy, just to make it something that people can, because
to make it breathable.
The truth is that Nigeria was grinding to a halt. I don't have to be an economist beyond what I got from Adam Smith in secondary school to know that Nigeria was really grinding to a halt. It was false floating of national life. The shell was big, but there was a hole in that shell. The meat was sick. So we understand what's happening, but maybe government should have taken it. I read something last week when it was during Obasanjo's time, and Obasanjo said that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was pro-World Bank. Soludo was the CBN governor, then was anti-World Bank. So the two of them was almost at each other's throat over policies and all that. Obasanjo said he wanted Soludo, Paul, you don't quarrel with the World Bank publicly. You pretend you are, take whatever they tell you. But when you go in there, you don't do what they ask you to do. Everybody laughed. So some of these things that IMF are foisting on us, some of these things that the World Bank are foisting on us, government. Actually, the government is resisting them because the president said way back that fuel price was not going to go beyond 6.15. It's still 6.17, 6.15, 6.17 at NNPCL filling stations. Yes. He kept his word. Even though somebody from the World Bank came and said it was supposed to be something around the 720. So they too know they cannot throw us to these international devourers. I'm sorry, but that is how some of us are looking at them. Yes. Yeah, there is such a thing as propping up the domestic life. And anyway, when it becomes so serious that people begin to take to the streets, the social cost of it. So government has a stake in making sure that this thing does not become unbearable for Nigerians. Yeah. Look at the list. 12.5 kg gas.
18,000. 18,000.
Has it gone there, or they are thinking it will go there?
I bought it on Thursday, 14,500.
Oh, the last time I paid about, that was 8 days ago, I paid 8 or so. Cement.
15,000.
Food. Prices of meters, they are saying that with the dollar going to about 1,500.
They want to double the price.
It's over that.
Above 1,500.
Juma, I didn't come here for my heart to be broken by you. I came to analyze this.
Talking about cement,
yes.
Who feels the brunt of...
No, they don't want Chukwudi to build a house.
You know the weight landlords are increasing rent in Abuja more than 1,000%.
And I said yesterday, we read it here, except if the report is not accurate.
No.
BUA declared 111 billion naira profit after tax. So that means that they managed to break even. Can they have a heart? The argument could be that some of the things we use to manufacture the cement come from abroad, and of course the foreign exchange. That's true. But you have to manage. There's a limit to beyond which people can't go anymore. That's what I think, ladies.
Chukwudi, have you ever asked yourself what happened to Ashaka Cement? Whatever happened to Ashaka Cement?
You could as well ask me whether I've asked myself what happened to Asaba Tex, the textile mill at Asaba.
Yes.
The groundnut pyramids, are they still the pride of Nigeria? Look, we simply went to sleep. Nigeria became like a goat that belongs to everybody. Jumai says Chukwudi must have fed this goat. Nyere says, oh yeah, the goat must have eaten at Jumai's place. At the end of the day, the goat dies of hunger.
Yes.
That's what we have been doing to our country. It is time for national reawakening. It's not just the government. Because the kind of argument I hear outside is, if I get there, I'm going to take my own share.
It's part of the national cake.
National cake.
Come on.
Our mentality has to change. The National Orientation Agency, I'm tired of talking about them, because some people will tell you, you can't change adults. They could pretend you've changed them. But our youths coming up, we need to reorientate them to love this country, because we're choking it to death by our attitude.
We are.
Well,
so, some ladies, not ladies, please. I don't want to start a fight here. Some people go to supermarkets to buy imported soups and all that. Soup.
I saw a video of a supermarket in Lagos.
So why would the dollar not hit the roof?
I wonder.
And I actually heard
bread 12,000 naira. Was it about 12,000 naira bread? The video, yes.
Is it a truckload of bread?
No. There are people living in Nigeria who use, everything they use in their homes, they get from outside the country.
Yes.
So do we now know that it is not just government and all that? We all are culpable. The Brazilian president, he met our president at the AU, meeting. Lula da Silva. he is trying to become more friendly with Africa.
Yeah.
Yesterday he was telling the Israeli Prime Minister, you have overreached yourself and all that. Da Silva is speaking up. I am happy that some kind of partnership is being struck between Brazil and Nigeria and the rest of Africa. Let us begin to solve our problems within the so-called third world arrangement. You know? Look,
Brexit comes into focus here, you know.
Yes.
You know, Brazil is part of Brexit, and Nigeria, I think, is joining Brexit. Sorry, not Brexit, the BRICS.
Oh, the BRICS.
The BRICS, sorry.
Yes.
And Nigeria is hoping to join very soon, and I think that's what Da Silva is doing, trying to tell them that, well, Brazil is also part of Africa, because most people that are in Brazil came from Africa.
I saw a lot of them in Salvador.
Yes, it's like home. We have
the state of Bani.
Yes, we have a whole Yoruba community there.
Actually, the 7 Yoruba deities are in a lake in Salvador, Brazil.
Yes.
I did a documentary on that before I came back.
Yeah, and all that. So I think it's just like coming back home.
Do you know that some churches in Brazil allow people to bring in their charms and amulets, the traditional whatever? I'll talk for another day.
Yes, on that
Just a quick word. You know, the economy, that's like what we focused on. The crisis in the primary election that held in the APC. What's your take?
Dahosa and... you see, when I come here, I don't talk politics.
Yeah.
He's a man
of many
worlds.
Okay,
the
on that note, thank you so much.
I don't talk politics.
Chukudi, thank you
I
so
don't
much.
understand that clan.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, Chukudi. Pleasure.
Okay, ladies, have a nice day.
As always, having you, yes. We'll take a break. When we return, our conversation on state police will begin. Don't go away. Good morning, Nigeria, and to begin our conversation on state police imperatives for national security, let's take this background report by Abdusalam Jibril.
The recent kidnappings and eventual rescue of some pupils in Ekiti State, the 6 sisters that were taken hostage alongside their father in January at their home in Buari, a suburb of Abuja, and many others, no doubt, put the spotlight once again on the security challenges Nigeria is facing. Reports of killings, terrorism, banditry, cult violence and armed robbery pop up daily, spreading fear among the populace and impacting negatively on socio-economic activities across the country. Some experts maintain that the scourge of kidnapping for ransom in particular remains a pervasive threat to Nigeria's security landscape. Other analysts insist that the current policing system as it is structured cannot appropriately address the myriad of security challenges across the country. They stress that the Nigerian police force is over-centralized, under-resourced, and ill-equipped, and suffers from political interference, hence a need for state policing. Concerned by the recent security challenges, the federal government and state governors are considering the creation of state police. This was part of deliberations between President Bola Tinubu and state governors at the presidential villa in Abuja on Thursday, 15 February 2024.
The federal government and the state governments are mulling the possibility of setting up state police. Of course, this is still going to be further discussed. A lot of work has to be done in that direction, but both the federal government and the state governments are agreeing to the necessity of having state police.
With widespread insecurity in the country, is state policing the way to go? While an amendment to the Constitution will still have to be passed to accommodate state policing, there are concerns of abuse by state governors if state policing is eventually adopted. What necessary safeguards should be put in place to forestall this? Some regions have adopted their own form of policing, such as Amotekun in the southwest, Ebubuagu in the southeast. How effective have they been towards securing their regions? This will form the crux of discussions as guests speak to state policing in Nigeria shortly.
Thanks, Abdulsalam Jibril, for the background report. Now, joining us for the conversation is Professor Jibril Ibrahim, a political scientist and senior fellow, Center for Democracy and Development. Many thanks for joining us, Prof.
A pleasure.
We also have with us in the studio Kabir Adamu, who is a regular and a security risk expert. Thank you once again for agreeing to be with us here.
My pleasure. Good morning.
And we also have in the studio another regular, Mr. Lawrence Alobi, FCT Police Commissioner, retired. Good to have you join us on the program, sir.
Thank you for having me, and good morning.
And in the course of the program, we have another guest that will be joining us via Zoom, but you'll get to join us when the Zoom connection is okay. Now, let's quickly begin this conversation with Professor Jibril. I read your write-up over the weekend, and I was thinking, almost after 2 decades, you know, successive governments have, you know, argued back and forth with state governors about, you know, having state police. There was never an agreement. Suddenly, there is a consensus now. What is the trigger?
I don't think there's a consensus among Nigerians that the issue is state policing. There is a consensus
between the state governors, between the presidency and the state governors. It never really went down well before.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I'll still make my point. Yes. There is no consensus among Nigerians that state policing is the answer. Okay. Even if there's a consensus between governors and the president that that's the answer. A lot of us feel we have a serious policing problem, which is tied to the fact that most of our police are deployed to VIP guard duties, and there are not enough of them. That's the problem. The problem isn't state police, because state police in our present political context, in which most state governors have a laser focus on how to eliminate those who oppose them, on how to oppress those who want to contest for power against them, against those who criticize their actions. If they have state police, they are going to use them in a way that's not designed to improve the security, but in a way that will determine political succession in their states. It's therefore dangerous at that time, and that's why I opposed it vehemently in my article.
All right, many thanks, Prof. Of course, we'll get back to you as regards why you're opposing the state police and your reasons, you know, in details. But let's get to Lawrence Alobi now, former FCT Police Commissioner. I want to find out your view about state police. The fact that you know, have worked in the police force, you understand how the police works at the moment. Is the challenge actually the fact that what we have now is not able to handle our security, you know, across the country, or you think state police is the way out?
Yeah, thank you very much. The problem is not about the system, whether it is state police or federal police. The main problem is attitude of the leadership, from Mr. President to all levels of governance. Attitude. During Babangida era, they said officers from the rank of a DSP to constable should go to their state of origin. I was a DSP then in 1987, 88. No, I went to my state, Cross River State. I was in my hometown, Ikom, as a DCO. You see, this issue of this diversity, corruption, ethnicity, it permits even to a local level. All along I've been supporting national, that is federal policing. But again, listen, I'm not concerned with that federal or state. Let's look at, give a critique of what are the benefits of federal policing. They will practice that since 1960 till date. What are the gains? How have we gone? Have we made progress? Are we having good policing? Why are we not having good policing? The present system with the federal policing, there are a lot of challenges. One, only political control. For instance, today, what is prevalent today is that a governor will tell the IG, this, I don't want this CP, this CP I want. Then it's not good enough. It's not good enough. When I was a deputy commissioner of police, I was in Scotland here on a course. Blair was chief of police then. They have a conclave. They will decide and select an officer who will become the chief of police. The Prime Minister now appoints. In Nigeria, it is who Mr. President loves or likes, or who MAs or Oba can appeal for. Like me, who come from a minority within a minority, I don't have Oba, I don't have MA to pray for me. I'm just very vulnerable. So it is the problem is that, again, our politicians are not able to mature politically. They know that leadership is all about service. Leadership is about empowerment. Leadership is all about giving people, delegating power. Leadership not just he who controls, he who dominates. But our politicians today are concerned how to grab power and basically acquire wealth and thereafter impoverish the people. They're not concerned about service, for they're not like service. Though my governor now talking about people first. I hope that is he upholds that. So the point is that we're not, again, diversity. Look at Nigeria today. Ethnic politics, religious politics, corruption. Until we're able to develop that state, we will have professionalism, accountability, with policing based on needs. And again, the police in this country have always used the colonial mentality that was introduced by the colonial masters, based on the McGregor's theory of management. Or the worker does not dislike, they dislike working, punish him, control him, oppress him, and so forth. That's what they call the X theory. I think my doctors and I'm not a professor, but at least I'm a sociologist too. You see, know that the X theory says that you must control the worker, because he doesn't like to work, what they call stick and carrot principle of management. Control the worker, coerce him, supervise him, because he has no ambition of his own, he has no responsibility, he doesn't take initiative, he's not creative. No. But then the white theory says no. That the X theory is about authoritative leadership, just domination and control, dictate. You don't have a listening ear. Like that should be in Nigeria. Most leaders don't listen. They don't have listening ear. Look at what's happening in the country today. They are very sensitive to our problems. Not people need driven. But like I said, my governor talks about people first. I hope, like I said, that is put into action. So Nigerian politicians are not concerned about service. For the white theory, which I adopt, give the employer the opportunity to develop himself. In fact, when I was in service, I asked my men, after uniform, what next? I tell them, you want to go to school. Most of them are AH, most of them are CPs, some of them were working as corporals. I said, go to school. I became one through school. I entered the place with a necessary certificate, but today I'm a master's degree in development studies, I'm a lawyer, I'm a sociologist. Develop yourself. Build capacity. Most of the officers are just run careers. They don't have professional capacity, professional knowledge, and so forth. But because of political consideration, either because we are coming from a particular group, ethnic group, or that, you know this or you know that, you are made that, you carry the rank, but upstairs, you just carry the rank, you don't have capacity. So our politicians are not able to imbibe, who control are not able to imbibe that culture of service. And governors today, like the governors are like emperors. I've been in the system for 35 years. I served. I taken part in almost elections. If you're not an officer who is firm and assertive, and if the IG is not firm and assertive, you go and cry to Mr. President, oh, I don't want this person. And that is not good enough. So until that is why these are the challenges in the present system, which is federal. We are so diversity in the country in terms of religion, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of culture, and so forth. So we feel that posting this federal policing will promote unity. But that unity is not there any longer. Like I said, it happened during Babangida. We sent DSP down to constable. We have to go to their state. But also, that's the mentality still there. I said character of the leader. What is the leader? What is like Mr. Tinubu now? What is the character? What are his values? What are the values of the leadership? Value of the leadership of the police? Are they there to empower, motivate the people? But like I said earlier, police management is based on the X theory. What is by the colonial master? They're not based on the white theory that motivates, create job creation, motivate the workers, give them morale, boost their morale, empower them, training, building teams with them, and so forth. There's always rivalry. You know, build team spirit. You work together like seconds of one hand. So, but the state police, for instance, it is good if we're able to imbibe, like it happened in Scotland Yard. Sorry, not Scotland Yard, in Britain and Canada. It is the multiplicant police, Met police. Yeah. They have their communities they have relate with the community and so forth. But people have developed their values to control, to serve. Yes. No value here for to loot, not to exploit.
Indeed. We will really get, when the conversation goes deep, we'll get to that aspect of it. Let's bring in Kabir Adamu here. You know, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, said during his press conference after the governor's meeting with the president that the plan is still in infancy, and they will lead to more deliberations to discuss with stakeholders and state actors. And it is thrown to the public, space too. There's been a lot of discussions all over, in the social media and all that. Let me get, what was your reaction when you had that news that, the federal government is thinking of having a state police? And what are the pros and cons of a state police in Nigeria? How will it affect our constitution?
Okay, thank you very much, Jummai. Number one, I wasn't surprised. Having had the privilege, as it were, to read through the Renewed Hope agenda as part of the elements on national security. It was stated clearly there by the President Bola Tinubu administration that they will work towards the creation of state police. Also, having had the privilege to go through the PAC, I think Presidential Advisory Council report, it was stated there. And in fact, they were very specific there that they wanted to harmonize existing police reforms, and they cited the Rufai reform report, which unfortunately I haven't seen. I don't know if any of the other discussants have seen. It's an APC internal document, and it hasn't been circulated widely. I've tried to lay my hands on it, but I haven't. But we know that over time, for as long as I can remember, there have been several reform reports, and almost all of them touched on the need to decentralize policing. And I think that's where I want to start my conversation. We need to take a step back and make a distinction between policing and then the institution of the Nigerian police force. They are two different things. And I'm sure Lawrence here would probably speak a little bit more on that. The Nigerian police force, as it stands today, has not met, and I think that was the point Professor Jibrin was making, it hasn't met our needs as a country for internal policing. There are gaps. The farther outside the city you go, the leaner the presence of the police. I mean, just over the weekend, I sat down and as part of what I do in Beacon Consulting, we collate security incidents and the occurrences in locations, Taraba, Kaduna, Zamfara, Katsina. It's quite unfortunate. And so I want to lay that emphasis that we are not happy with the current structure and the services that are provided by the Nigerian police force. But when we now come to speak of policing, we can ask ourselves, what are the other agencies in government that are providing policing? And there are several of them. As an example, the road safety, if you expand the definition of policing, road safety is doing that. To certain extent, the Civil Defense Corps is also doing that. To some extent, immigration. If you go to a country like Germany, it's the police that provides immigration. So I think that's where perhaps we should start. Define policing, and then define the imperatives of policing. What do we really want out of the police? And then once we do that, we ask ourselves, is the current structure of the Nigerian police force meeting that requirement? I mean, we've spent time here. I've sat down in your studio several times. We've discussed the challenges of the Nigerian police force. So I don't think this is new to any person. Now, if this government came up with an aspiration, as it were, to decentralize policing, and then we're seeing this progress. They are meeting with the governors. I went back to ask myself, what were the commonalities between all the other reform reports that were produced? Let's not forget that at the moment, there is actually a roadmap for police reform in the country, which happened post the NSAS protest. the government, civil society organizations, development partners sat down and agreed to a roadmap that is being implemented. So I'm a bit worried that some of the pitfalls that prevented the implementation of previous reform reports is likely to occur in this instance. And I'll quickly explain what I mean. Governors went about setting up vigilantes. I mean, probably there is no state in the country at the moment that does not have one or the other form of vigilantes. And we spoke about it, against it actually. And I think even here in the studio, I cautioned that the proliferation of these vigilantes is actually a threat to our national security. I also posited at that point that I think it will be very difficult for you to call any government department to ask for the list of these vigilantes that are being set up. Not just the list, but the names of the operatives that have been recruited. What are their profiles? Who are they? I doubt if you get any agency. So part of the conversation that occurred when the presidents, the federal security structure and the state governors met is, I think, this concern. And then, of course, it's now been put forward the possibility of creating state police. So what do they want to achieve as politicians? I think is to have a level of control over the challenges that exist at the state level. Now, will this discussion lead to that? I'm a bit worried about that, for the simple reason that that distinction is yet to be made between the Nigerian police force and then policing as a function. We desire improved policing. We desire an improved Nigerian police force. How are we going to get that? I don't think it's politicians that will give us that. We need technocrats that would define through verifiable means what policing functions are required in Nigeria, and then to look critically, I think some of the points made by Lawrence Aluwi regarding the challenges existing within the current policing structure in Nigeria. And I want to extend the conversation to say community policing is being experimented at the moment. There are two elements of that are contained in the Police Act. First is the recruitment of constabularies that, as far as I know, has been implemented almost 100%. But the same challenge that I spoke about affected it, which is the role of politicians. They interfered with the process. I think the idea at the point they thought monies would be paid to these constabularies, and then somehow they put their people into the system. The second element is the creation of community policing committees. I'm not sure either at the local government or at the ward level. I think Lawrence Alubi will clarify that, because I think you are a member of the FCT community policing committee.
There's a recruitment process ongoing too now.
So apart from the recruitment process of police operatives, these are two different platforms under the community policing arrangement that is contained in the Police Act and the revised national strategy. All of that, as far as I know, the Ministry of Police Affairs has perfected the policy. The recruitment has taken place. Those platforms exist, but nobody is asking the question, why are they not functional? Because I love the idea of the policing community policing committees. It would address the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion that we feel does not exist at the moment. Women groups would be part of that committees, youth groups, market women, name them. Everybody in society would be given an opportunity to participate in the policing function. And so it takes us back to that suggestion I did. Let's start with defining what is policing, and then how much of what we desire as policing is in the current structure of the Nigerian police force provided. And if the answer is no, how do we change it so that we have an effective and hopefully an efficient policing system in place?
Many thanks, Kabiru Adamo. Of course, we'll get back to you, and let's quickly get to Professor Jubreen Ibrahim now. Of course, I also read what your take on state police in the papers over the weekend, just like my colleague, and you're against state police. You think that it's not really going to help the security situation in the country. I would like you to elaborate on some of your reasons, because what is being canvassed by the politicians, it's quite funny that Lawrence mentioned that the problem of the current policing in the country are the politicians. You also hinted on the fact that we have more policemen carrying the bags and briefcases of politicians, affecting the police structure. Kabir also mentioned that the politicians, I mean, it's like, you know, the politicians are trying to do a lot, you know, as regards the security issue. Now, just tell us, what really are your reasons? Because, you know, the politicians who are canvassing for the state police are saying that it will help them take hold of their territories. Would it be for good or would it be for bad?
Policing is about law enforcement. It is based on the rule of law, and a police force has to be neutral in the execution of its job of law enforcement. The problem we have is that state-level governance is extremely partisan, and state governors are so powerful relative to other institutions that they always put their politics above the rule of law, and they always set aside political neutrality in their action. My argument is that we have a serious problem of policing, and these problems are known. President Obasanjo set up a police reform committee. President Yar'Adua set up another police reform committee. The third police reform committee was set up by President Jonathan. I've read the three reports, and they raise two fundamental issues. One is the deployment of police personnel, which Kabiru spoke about, that most police personnel are deployed to VIP guard duty and are not available for law enforcement because they are guarding individual big men, and that this is actually commercialized because some of those day guards are senior government officials. Others are people who simply pay for police guard duty. So that's one problem. Why don't we change police deployment to make sure they do policing? The second issue all the three reports emphasize is the structure of financing within the police force itself. They point out, and all the three reform panels were led by very senior retired police officers, that policing is done at the police station, the small police station in where you live. Go to any police station in this country, zero resources. So they can't do their policing work because they have no resources. Go to the office of the Inspector General of Police, most of the budget of the police is consumed in that office. So the structure of finances of the police force is very dysfunctional because the most strategic point of policing, the police station, has no resources. You go to give a report, you have to buy a paper or give them money to buy paper. They can't move because they have no money for fuel. They can't move because they have no vehicle. Go to how many police stations in this country have functional computers? Virtually none. So the police is not structured to perform. And all these reform committees say if you address that problem, you will have a police force that's much more functional. The third issue I think they raised is the number of police. That when you look at the UN standards, our police are too few. Since the first committee under Obasanjo, there was a decision that we should significantly increase the number of police personnel. Almost 20 years later, that has not happened. Each president has tried to significantly increase the number of police officers. Then there will be a big fight between the Police Service Commission and the IG's office. There will be a lot of kata-kata. At the end of the day, they'll start a recruitment process. These fights will block it. And then this whole issue of the corruption within the police force itself, people struggling to get people to pay to be police officers, and that way you start recruiting criminals into the system. So these are the problems of the Nigerian police force, and we should address these problems. There's the other issue that Kabiru raised that I think is very important, which is the rural-urban divide. Over the past 30 years, most police personnel have been removed from rural Nigeria.
So don't you think state police will address these issues that you have mentioned? This issue of having, because now it's a federal system of police, maybe that's why we do not have them in the rural areas like you mentioned. The issue of having finance, just domiciled in the IG's office, not trickling down to the common police station in my area. Don't you think that if you have state police, some of these issues will be addressed?
I think you have a point there. In theory, it will be addressed. And let me also make the point that in federal political systems, it is normal that you have state police. And in principle, I support state police because we have a federal system. My specialty in political science is federalism, and I know all federal states. Nigeria is one of the very few federal states without state police. So I don't have a principled opposition to state police. I'm simply afraid that at this point in time, when there's so much partisan politics and lack of neutrality in terms of the actions taken by state governors, having a state police will be used mainly as a weapon against political opponents. And that could have a dramatic effect in terms of the quality of our democracy, because the state police will be used by governors to stop opposition parties from existing in the state. They will not be allowed to organize, they will not be allowed to have offices. Anything they try to do, they will set the state police on them, and that will be a serious threat to sustaining a democratic system. That's really my fear. I don't have a principled opposition to state police, but I watch very closely the way in which politics is played at the state level. State governors are extremely powerful relative to other institutions at the state level. They basically control the state houses of assembly. They control the state judiciary. If now they have a police that they control, opposition parties cannot exist, will not be allowed to exist at the state level. And that is my fear. And that's why I make the argument that at this time in our political history, let's set aside the state police issue. We can come back to it in another 10 years or so. But let's significantly improve the performance of the police that we now have. The estimates we have, and this is from a retired DIG, is that we have 350,000 police officers in this country, and 150,000 of them are guarding big men and big women. Is that policing? That's not policing. That's a security system that has been turned away from the central purpose of providing for the security and well-being of Nigerians to providing for the security and well-being of a few Nigerians, a few thousand Nigerians who can either afford to pay police for police guards or whose office qualifies them for police guards. You can't run a country like that.
This fear is shared by so many Nigerians because they feel that the state police will come through an act of the state assembly, and the state assembly will know and are under the control of the state governors, where in some states they are like demigods. And let me bring you in now, DCP retired. Who controls the apparatus of security in the state if there's a state police in any state in Nigeria. Some people are advocating, like Kabir Adamu said, community policing, bringing policing closer to the people, making them stakeholders in the decision making of the state police or community policing. How will control be now divided among the stakeholders?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like Prof just did mention, the challenges in the police force are the problem. And then the challenges of undue political control are the problem. Like I said, the two both systems, state policing is good because crime is localized. Local crime starts from the community. Don't go so federal. It doesn't start in the air, federal. In the community. And how they structure the local government to state and federal. You see, like I said, attitude is everything. If we can change attitude of a person, can change their attitude. Let their attitude be render service to the people. Policing to meet the needs, security needs of the people in line with Section 14B of the Constitution, which provides that the purpose of government is the security and welfare of the people. Police also need welfare. But police, they're not being motivated. They're not being equipped. Today, policing and security is technology driven. How far have we applied technology in policing in this country? How far have we applied drones, effective modern technology in terms of communication, tracking? Even right now, it's probably people that have tracking devices when they locate kidnappers. They should, at least every local government, every police station, police post should have a modern technology of tracking, technology of communication. Like I said, if you go to UK, where they have this state policing, municipal policing, they have a central, in Scotland Yard, they have a central operations room where the whole city of London is captured. And there are cameras everywhere. They have now the ground officers on patrol. Just like Jack Robinson, before 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you see patrol cars there. But now, in my local government, the DP has no patrol car. How can he respond to crisis situations? How can he come to any crisis, maybe like, say there's kidnapping or whatever, or robbery, attack, or anything, or bank robbery? He cannot respond. Apparently, when I met him, I shed tears. As a DPO, I had a staff car, I had patrol car, there were vehicles lorries that carry people for posting, there were police filling station where police vehicles are going to be fuel. You are patrol, you fuel, you just put your notebook, you log in there, but now nothing like that. We have police mechanic workshop that are very effective, well equipped. They don't exist any longer.
What happened along the way?
That is the thing, that's the problem. 1, corruption. 2, poor leadership. The leadership, political leadership, if the politicians don't cry, the governors want posted, they want to grab power. That's all. They're not concerned about the security needs of the people in line with Section 14B of the Constitution. And the Nigerians too. Section 24E of the Constitution provides that it's constituted to every Nigerian citizen to have security and maintain law and order. Nations are built on law and order, like Prof said. And law, that is all policing. Today in Nigeria, policing is now an all-commerce affair. We don't have a framework for national policing and law enforcement in this country. That's a lacuna. We don't have any framework. We need to have a framework for policing and law enforcement. So we will have boundaries. Now it's all commerce affair. The military are supposed to be constrained to fight wars, dominate the situation, take over the situation. Military are not involved in policing, which is not good. Look at now ADCs and military officers, which is not so. You see, policing is civil. Policing is all about persuasion. Policing about emotional intelligence. Policing about promoting democratic values. We talk about community policing. Community policing just engaging this community. When I was in Abuja, I go to give lectures in Central Mosque on police and security. Imam. When I was in Abuja, students when they blocked the whole highway, Abuja University, Professor the Vice Chancellor, they want to kill him. As a student, I used to be a student activist. I'm a Marxist by orientation. I addressed the students. I know their psychology. They block with tankers and trailers. I spoke to them and they
tear gas them?
And let me tell you, I dress them as a great Nigerian student, great Nigerian student, great Nigerian bossa. I know that psychology. I was an activist as a student in Suka. So we trekked, my student, my police want to use, I said, you don't do anything in my operations. I will tell you when to add, when to fire.
Okay.
I will tell you, no, let me finish. Let me finish. So I address the students and I track with them from the highway to the campus. And the man use one tear gas, persuasion, application emotional intelligence. Then build trust and confidence in the people. It's like I said, attitude. Attitude of the Nigerian citizens, for instance, are they willing to cooperate with the police or the agency? No, they don't have that trust. That trust deficit is there, and that's because they only want to give them information about security issues in their communities. So we have to build trust. The police need to reinvent itself, and this should be national orientation should carry out a massive public election on the security consciousness and all of the citizens in promoting peace and security. Right. The preamble of the preamble of this one preamble says that as war begins the hearts of men, so will the foundation of peace be applied in the hearts of men. Yes. So education, enlightenment of the citizens, national orientation, our attitude, that's the point. If we have our attitude, policing is good, crime is localized. But if our politicians are now concerned, orientate themselves and believe in the culture of service, where this one will enjoy free oxygen, service, free wall, free sunshine, free rain. What about Homo sapiens, which are human beings, spiritual beings that have the image of God in us? We don't need that service until we are giving money. We make it very basically a question of wealth and power until when we transform our attitude and change until we have the leadership is based on needs. Leadership is purposeful, leadership is based to meet the needs of the people. Then policing will be wonderful and we'll have democratic policing.
All right, very good point, CP retired. Of course, when you first responded, you talked about attitude, and again, you're hammering on it. Of course, all of this are lacking. Maybe that's why there's a call for state police now, just so that we could have effective policing. But, I want to get to Dr. Kabir Adamu. When you spoke earlier, you talked about the fact that, this administration had always had it in its plan to have state police. That got me thinking. While the plan for state police was being, formulated, was there also a thought as regards national security, like Professor said? Because, when the state governors, who are known as emperors, have powers, and then they have the police at their beck and call, of course, we know what could happen. And then did the thought about proliferation of arms also come into, the thought of whoever formulated the state police thing? Because at the moment we have arms, being handled by different people, if you like, the wrong persons in our society. And then if you go to states, you find out that people who are in charge of revenue collection, who are traffic wardens, are people who, governors have empowered, if you like, to compensate them for their role during elections and all of that. So if they also have the power to, have a police, I mean, that's a second thought. Then again, the thought about conflict of interest. Because if you have federal police and then you have state police, who has the right to arrest? Who has the right to prosecute? And then if the governor is involved, or maybe his allies are involved, will the state police be able to function? Will the federal police be able to function? These are issues. Could you speak to some of these issues and then the call for state police at the moment?
Okay, thank you. I think the imperative for improved internal security led to that announcement that we had. So that's very clear. At least the stated objective. There may be latent objectives that have not been mentioned, and whenever politicians act, that issue is always there. What they are saying and then what probably their intention is, sometimes two different things. Now, to that extent, I think we're all agreed here that we need improved policing. We need improved national security. However, where the issue is how do we achieve that? Do we achieve that by decentralizing policing to now create state police? And I think I agree totally with the point made by Professor Jibrin in saying, for instance, that yes, in principle, there is a need for state policing, but there are concerns, and those concerns are valid. The democratic tenets at the state level do not do not, at this stage in our national growth and existence, provide for the creation of state policing. If we are going to move in that direction, then we need to improve those democratic tenets. The checks and balances that should exist to prevent governors from hijacking that instrument of force to use in pursuing their personal interest or political interest, as the case may be. I haven't seen that conversation yet. And if we're going to advance in that direction, that is the conversation that I think we need to have. As an example, when we look at other countries, who appoints the commissioners of police if we decentralize policing? It can never be the governors. Because if it is, of course, that person is going to do their bidding. Financing. Will it be the governors who will approve funding for those police structures? What will be the checks and balances that will be in place to reduce their ability to influence? That conversation too hasn't been had. And in all of this conversation, what will be the role of the National Assembly? What will be the role of the state legislature in all of this? So there are a lot of issues that would need to be discussed. And I'm very happy the information.
And talking about the issue of financing quickly, would they even be able to fund the police? At the moment, we have states that cannot function. I
was going to talk about that, and we need to call a spade a spade. I usually don't like kidding around these things. The police at the moment is one of the most, in terms of attention, that we've given to the Nigerian police force. I don't think there's any other organization that has received that, and I'll quickly explain what I mean. We created the Police Trust Fund to provide three things. Number one, funding for the police. And in the act that created that fund, there were certain provisions that made it very clear where the fund for the trust fund will come to. And that fund is in existence at the moment. So if I'm hearing from Lawrence Alubi that there is a divisional police that does not even have a vehicle, then we need to ask ourselves the critical question, should that fund be existing? Why the essence of the creation of that fund is not being met clearly. So the fund that is going to it, where is the fund going to? This is simple logic. That you created that fund to provide the very things that don't seem to be in existence at the moment. So that's number one. Number two, the Police Service Commission. The police is one of the only organizations at the moment that have an ombudsman in existence in the security sector. I doubt if there is any other unit within the security sector that has an ombudsman. If the NSA today does something wrong to me, who do I report to? Nobody. If the military does something wrong to me, who do I report to? Nobody. But in the case of the police, at least I can go to the Police Service Commission. The other ones, yes, maybe the Public Complaints Commission, but they will tell you the security issue. They won't listen to it. Is it the National Assembly I will go to? They probably cannot even listen to it. So I think we've tried enough for the police. It is time for the police to own up to their responsibility. And that's the point I want to make. A lot of the challenges that exist today is because the police has not accepted its responsibilities. When Prof made the point that around 150,000 of the police personnel that we have are deployed for commercial purposes, it is a fact. I'm an operator. I run a firm, and I know how many police officers my clients require, and I know how much I pay. Now the question is, where does that money go to? How come that money is not being captured in a manner that will be useful to the police and not to personal interest? So the question of improved policing, the question of improved internal security, it's there. And I think if we pick all the reform reports that Prof mentioned, plus the additional ones, I talked about the one that came after NSAS, and that at the moment we have a roadmap for police reform. It's there, it's in existence. What I don't know is it started under President Buhari. And if you look at the Renewed Hope agenda, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised us that he would take the good things that President Buhari did and continue with them and discard them. Now, I don't know if that reform is considered good or bad, whether it has been discontinued or whether it's continuing. But it's a beautiful piece of work. Everything that Lawrence Alubi mentioned in terms of challenges and what needs to be done, improving training, improving the curriculum of the police, their equipment repository, financing is captured in that report. Now, I think instead of this conversation around the creation of state police, let's do an audit and ask that critical question: where are we in the implementation of the existing reform as well as previous ones? What prevented them? What are the things that we need to do to improve that? And I think the role of the National Assembly is absolutely important in this regard. You have a couple of committees that have relevance in policing. There is a committee on policing, there is a chairman. What are they doing in terms of their oversight function? Now, with regard to the second part of your question regarding the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, that's another area that I, as a Nigerian, I'm embarrassed when I think about it. ECOWAS has recommended to all its member states to create a commission for mopping up small arms and light weapons. Nigeria is the only country at the moment that does not have that. I think Prof can correct me if I'm wrong about that. I know that we've had a committee over a long period, and then that committee was disbanded under President Buhari, and then I think the National Assembly passed a bill that was never assented to by the president. So there is currently a commission on small arms and light weapons that is in existence without presidential assent. Then you now have a center for small arms and light weapons that is in the office of the National Security Advisor. So I'm not sure what kind of a country are we when we have an existential challenge. My organization did a study and we were able to identify that there are more weapons in circulation in the hands of non-state armed groups that there are in the hands of our security forces. Now, at the very liberal admittance, you can say we have about 29 MDAs that are involved in security at the federal level. Now, about 19 of them are constitutionally allowed to bear weapons. At the best, even if you are extremely liberal, the weapons they have at their possession is about 1 million. Now, on the other hand, you have about 4.7 million in the hands of the non-state actors. So compare that. It is, and that is why we have the challenge we have at the moment. Now, if as a federal security player, I want to address that problem, then I have to have a platform to mop up that small arms and light weapons. And my point is, at the moment, we don't have that platform. The police has some arrangements that it has put in place. Then these two organizations that I mentioned, the center, has done an amazing job in terms of mopping up. But its power, its mandate to do that is whittled down almost significantly. So going forward, I think this is what we need to address. The point I've tried to make is that we have bigger problems to address before we even start discussing state policing.
Please, can I respond to one thing?
Briefly, we have to go on a break.
We don't mind.
Right now.
You see, the issue of small arms. I was chairman of a course moratorium on small arms for Nigeria. And then the police, we used to mop out, when I was federal operation, I set up committees, all the states that mop up illegal arms. We will recover illegal arms, organize raids in all villages and communities and suspected areas, and the arms were brought here for destruction. All the service chiefs, the arms will be destroyed. But now it's no longer there. In fact, when I was in the Human Rights Committee, we went try to reach out to the local arms manufacturers to get them registered. So any arm we know with the source of that arm. But it didn't sell through. The issue of talking about the trust fund. The trust fund, Mr. Smith, I.G. Smith, I was member of the committee, Senator Arua. We went around to do public hearing. It was established, but it had been hijacked by politicians. The chairman, who is retired IGP, but Suleiman was the chairman, he's just like a figurehead, only to be seen, not to be heard. It is being controlled by the secretary, who is a politician. He now decides what to buy and so forth. This is political, it is away for this country, honestly, political control. Politicians, they don't have empathy, they don't have compassion, they don't continue to serve or to look to money. They use that to settle those who work for them during elections and so forth. It's not just to achieve purpose, like in Lagos. If the security trust fund is what is helping Lagos State, it's firmly operational and effective. But the police trust fund is being hijacked by politicians. The secretary of the commission, secretary of the trust fund, is now controls who doesn't know the needs of the police. You have to go and beg him before he does what he should do. It should be under the control of the police. The police knows their needs. They should only be monitored and ensure accountability. The politician will not allow you to do anything. It's a shame in this country.
Yes, we'll come to talk about when we return after the break and the role of the Police Service Commission also. And the big question is, will state police be carrying arms or they'll use stun guns? We'll be back after this break. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. I'll be discussing state police, and we also have our guests still seated here in the studio. Let's come back to Professor Jibril. I would like to ask you this question. We're talking about power, control, security apparatus and all that, and many perceive that the decentralized form of the police is leading to a lot of issues that cannot address the multifaceted and hydra-headed security challenges of this country. Hence the quest for state police. But my colleague here talked about proliferation of small arms, and most of these insecurities are in the local areas, like in the local government, like in Katsina, Zamfara and all that. And if we have a state police, my question is, will they be armed? Because they can't go fighting against bandits who have machine guns. I hope you get my point. Machine guns and rocket launchers and all that, and then you say you have a state police that has a stun gun. How can you fight insecurity in a state, in a condition like that?
Well, the basic fact is that non-state actors, as Kabiru said, have procured massive amounts of weapons in this country. He estimates 4.7 million arms in the hands of non-state actors. General Abdul Salami Abubakar Committee estimated 6 million actually, with 1 million in the hands of state security. So it's clear police, they need arms. But arms can be procured for federal police, they can be procured for state police. The issue is you need to increase numbers significantly. You need to provide just equipment they need. It's quite shocking what CP is saying about his own local government, which doesn't even have an operational vehicles. And these are the issues that have been known for a very long time. Like I said, since the committee set up by Obasanjo. So since the problems are known, why is there no solution in sight? We are talking of a 20-year period, and we are talking of 5 different presidents that have been aware of these problems. The basic issue is that you have a new Inspector General of Police. The Inspector General of Police always starts with great promises. And one of my fun things is to read the first statements of each IG. The Nigerian police force will no longer accept citizens who don't qualify for police personnel having them. We will remove all these obstacles on our roads. We'll clear them. Police will... It's really fun reading. And then after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, that's the end of the story. We are back to where we were. Actually, we never left where we were before. So you have a system in which the police has been comforted in its bad practices. And there is no supervisor to call them to order. The police has never allowed the Police Service Commission to do its work. In that case, it is the responsibility of the president to intervene. President Muhammadu Buhari, for years, the police was stuck in an open fight between the Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police. They even went to court. There's no country in which 2 government agencies will go to court, will be fighting themselves openly, insulting each other, and the president will just watch them and smile. Shameful. That's a dereliction of responsibility for the president, because when your agencies that you supervise, you appointed them all, are not functional, you have to address that problem. I think we've reached a stage in this country where our survival is in question, our collective survival. In so many rural parts of rural Nigeria today, people have had to abandon their villages, abandon their farms because they are being killed. In most of our cities, that's happening. The only good thing is that in Abuja, the outskirts are now heavily affected and they are moving into the city. Yes. And for the first time, this political class that doesn't care about the lives and security of Nigerians is getting worried. Why are they coming into Abuja? Well, if they're everywhere, why will they not come into Abuja? Because there's a logic in what's happening. And that logic we need to examine closely. Nigerians have observed over the decades that politicians get into power and they use it to enrich themselves personally with property that belongs to the entire nation. So, private individuals are now saying, okay, it's because these people control the army, they control the police, that they steal our collective resources. So we too will go and get arms and look at any resource around you and you steal it also. So it becomes a destructive logic in which the interests of the community is set aside and everybody is over their personal accumulation, personal wealth, personal aggrandizement. When that happens, what you are really talking about is the disintegration of the state. Because we need the state to serve the collective interest. And that's the whole notion of law and order, based on the principle of protecting every citizen, defending their rights, and when they disobey the law, when they do things that are wrong, sanction them. That's why you have a correctional system, that's why you have a police force, that's why you have a judiciary. And what we are looking at is when that system breaks down, then you are on the road to anarchy. And I think government should really realize that we are at the tipping point. And if serious reform does not happen today, there will be no country to talk about very soon.
All right, Prof, thank you so much. We actually want a country to talk about tomorrow, and that's why we're having this conversation, just so that we can, nip some of the problems in the board and find a way forward. Dr. Kabiru, while you were rounding off your thoughts on the last question, you talked about the fact that talking about state police is not what we need at this point. There are other very critical issues that we should be talking about, just so that we can continue to exist, like Professor Jibrin has said. So I would like you to, touch more on, some of these things that you think we should be addressing now as a people. And then we have hammered so much on the politicians and, what they're doing. It is their duty, first and foremost, to ensure the security of lives and property in their domains. And then from what we have said, they seem to also be the problem, why there's no security, in the country. Can you speak to what we can do as a people, just so we can check these politicians? Because I'm sure, like the CP has said, even in the police system, the politicians are also involved inside the police itself, and talking about the Police Service Commission and what they do. So what are your recommendations, going forward so we can continue to have a nation?
Number one, I think, is to improve citizen participation in the political space, where all stakeholders in the project called Nigeria, if something happens to that project, we are the ones to be affected. It's not, outsiders. And so, improve participation. The role of the media cannot be overemphasized as the fourth estate of the realm, highlighting, I would say, gaps and allowing Nigerians to also understand how critical these issues are. A couple of days ago, last week precisely, I think either Monday or Tuesday, the Senate had a parley with security sector leadership, and they came out and gave a vote of confidence to that. I know a lot of Nigerians are unhappy with that, because a lot of Nigerians are asking if the state of insecurity is at the level it is, and then we're hearing the representative of the people passing a vote of confidence. Even though I think part of the challenge is the statement by the chairman of the National Assembly, the Senate President, was not really made very clear to Nigerians. Yes, they passed a vote of confidence, but they also talked about areas of improvement, and somehow those areas of improvement were lost in the narrative that was sent out to the people. So I think improving participation by citizens in the civil space, and that means, for example, making sure you vote when it's time to vote, paying attention to developments within the country, and not just going with the sentimental conversations that go, but critical issues, and contributing to those critical issues so that there is a consensus. And I know the discussion around elite consensus, which I'm sure Prof is a better place to speak about that than I am, which unfortunately seems to be non-existent in Nigeria. That's an area that I think we also need to come to an agreement. What do we really want out of this country? As a Nigerian, what are my expectations? What do I want as society? I think that consensus is very important. And then what in this specific area of security, especially internal security, what do we want as Nigerians? Earlier on, the former commissioner spoke about the involvement of the retired commissioner, spoke about the involvement of the military in internal security. It has become the norm, and nobody is even having a conversation on how to reverse that. So I think that conversation needs to be commenced, and then more importantly, we need to have perhaps a plan on how we can improve policing. Earlier on, I talked about differentiating between policing and then the Nigerian police force. I think it's absolutely important. Yeah. If you look at the Oronsonyo report and its recommendation, it tried to do that. It actually recommended the delineation of the functions of some of these organizations, and for some of them, they're scrapping them. So that conversation needs to be had, because we're wasting money with some of these organizations. I also worry, and I don't know how to say this diplomatically, the fact that we have two ministries superintending over the provision of internal security, the Ministry of Police Affairs and the Ministry of Interior. Each of them has certain responsibility in the policing function, but they are separate. And I don't see a lot of handshaking between the two ministries. So these are some of the conversations that I think we need to have. And at the center of all of this is the National Assembly. They are the ones who should check the executive arm of government. And I think virtually everybody will agree with me that they are not doing that enough. There is room for improvement in that regard. And is it a function of their capacity? In other words, is it because they don't have capacity to do that? Or rather, like the former commissioner mentioned, retired commissioner, mentioned, is it because of corruption? I think it's a combination of the two. We can help them in the first one, which is capacity. But they need to admit, and they also need to identify the persons who have the capacity to come, and even if it's a short training. I've recommended this, the chairpersons of all the committees that have responsibility for security. Security is not as simple as people, and there are several areas in security. And just because you are perhaps a former governor or you've gone for a course in the university does not make you a security specialist or expert. When you are supervising, especially oversight functions in the field of security, there are certain things you need to know, that you need to appreciate. So I think a short course to support these committees and their staffers, because remember, they have National Assembly staff members who are supporting them, like the clerks of the committees. I don't know what capacity they have.
But you've seen training taking place for these officials.
I doubt if
it's... Don't take a crash course on security?
I doubt if it's sufficient, and I doubt if it's specific to the needs, especially. As an example, I want to see more M&E functions in security, monitoring and evaluation. I want to see metrics introduced in security. I want to see KPIs introduced insecurity to the point where if the IG is invited, like the parley that happened last week, we had through Premium Times, again this is measured, I don't know if it's true, but Premium Times published it, that the National Security Advisor went with statistics. Now the question is, what baseline or what measures did the National Assembly use in measuring what the NSA presented to them? I don't think they have that. So they need to have their own, so that when these parleys are being held, they can look at their own to say, okay, what you are telling us. I mean, if the IG goes to say abduction has been reduced by, let's say, 50%, they need to be able to look at something to say, okay, our own record tells us the same, or no, IG, what we have in our record does not speak the same. Can you please clarify? I don't think they have that. So those are the kind of things I hope to see going forward, and it will help us as a country. We don't have the resources, they are not enough, but yet we are wasting them in areas that I think are not relevant to our progress at the moment.
Actually, that's your forte, and I wonder why, people like you are not brought on board when some of these decisions are made. Let's bring in Mr. Alobi now. Mr. Alobi, some people have also advocated for a strengthening of the powers of the Police Service Commission, so that it can be outlined in a way that people understand the role of the Police Service Commission in ensuring that recruitment, training and posting of police officers is done well. And by that, people say it might even help in building the foundation of the state police.
You see, in all organizations, leadership determines followership. The present chairman of Police Service Commission is a very dynamic, well-informed, and knowledgeable retired IGP, Solomon Arase, and he brings a lot of reforms. And they see the function of like my colleague here said, Osborne man of the force, of the police force. Like the police is the only institution that has this organization that can checkmate them, account for that accountability. The Police Service Commission meant for recruitment, promotion, posting, discipline, and promotion and posting of senior officers. But then the IG will normally recommend. The IG is the man who knows which officer has the capacity. The IG recommend. The Police Service Commission look at it and see, is this recommendation, is it okay? If not okay, they can make some amendment. But in terms of discipline too, the Police Service Commission is in charge of discipline and promotion. But then, like Prof said earlier, some years back, there had been that conflict between the Police Service Commission and the IGP. There shouldn't be that rivalry, which is debasing and shameful. They should work together like fingers of one hand, with a common objective, common purpose, to achieve a common goal. Nations are built on law and order, and the police is the critical agency that drives that process. And the police in today, Nigerian, all over the years, police have been so neglected. Police are not the background. I'm sure, in fact, if I tell you how much I receive as the retired commissioner of police, I'm a retired general, police general. If you'll be shameful, but I can't say it. You see, police have been so neglected. No equipment, no communication, nothing to work with. You need to work, we need to empower. We're not talking about problem-solving approach to issues, whether state police or federal police. If we address these problems, all the reforms, they are there. If reforms can be properly, can be well executed, government can develop the political will to implement these reforms, I think things will change and we'll have a better Nigerian police force.
Mr. Alobi, Lawrence Alobi, the FCT Police Commissioner of Police retired. Thank you so much for your insight this morning. Of course, we're looking forward to better policing and, of course, better security. And from all that has been said today, strengthening the police that we have is a way forward than thinking about state police. Many thanks, Dr. Kabir Adamu, security risk expert. Thank you for joining us again and for sharing your experience with us. We deeply appreciate you. Of course, Professor Jibril Ibrahim, political scientist and senior fellow, Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. A pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so we appreciate our guests, and of course, unfortunately, we couldn't get our guest from Katsina State, who was built to join us. So that's it on our conversation this morning. Let's have a bit from the sports world.
The second stanza of the 2023-2024 Nigeria Premier Football League
It's the gaze at the weekend as Rivers United striker Inyema Nwangwa scored a hat-trick in the former champions 3-2 win over Doma United at the Adoke Amansi Maka Stadium in Port Harcourt. Nwangwa got the opening goal 7 minutes into the encounter, but Bidemi Owoku leveled matters for visiting Doma in the 32nd minute. Nwangwa then added the second and third in the 47th and 55th minutes before Hilary Ekawu put one back for the visitors. Despite the win, Sterling Eguma's side are still 10th in the table with 27 points after 20 games. Also, Plateau United striker Albert Hilary resumed the second stanza with his 10th goal of the season to help his side to a 2-1 victory over Lobby Stars at the new Jos Stadium. Following the defeat, Lobby Stars surrendered the top spot to Remo Stars, who now lead on goal difference after getting a priceless goalless against Abia Warriors in Aba with 10 men. Also, a total of 12 beach volleyball players have resumed camp ahead of the 13th African Games in Ghana. The 13th African Games will be held from February 8 to 23rd.
Foreign news is next.
African leaders at the African Union Summit in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa have condemned Israel's offensive in Gaza and called for its immediate end. Musa Faki, the chair of the African Union Commission, says Israel's offensive was the most flagrant violation of international humanitarian law and accused Israel of having exterminated Gaza's inhabitants. Faki spoke alongside Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shaitai, who also addressed the summit. President of the Comoros and the outgoing chairperson of the AU praised the case brought by South Africa against Israel at the International Court of Justice, while condemning the genocide Israel is committing in Palestine. Similarly, Israel's army pressed on Sunday with its campaign in southern Gaza to destroy Hamas as prospect deemed for a ceasefire in the more than 4-month-old war. Hamas-run Gaza's health ministry says a total of 127 people died in 24 hours as the main battlefront edged closer to far southern Rafah, where 1.4 million Palestinians live in crowded shelters and tent camps. Israel's top ally, the United States, signaled it would veto the latest push for a UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire, as Washington instead favors a temporary truce and hostage release deal.
All right, that's good morning, Nigeria. This Monday. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Henry John. Remain tuned to the NTA.
And I'm Jumma Yusuf. Thanks for your time.